The Grand Assembly Station floated like a giant ring of glass and metal at the center of the galaxy. Stars burned beyond its walls, silent witnesses to history. Inside, thousands of alien delegates sat in silence, waiting. Jack Voss stood near the center of the circular chamber, beneath a high dome glowing with soft blue light. He was tall, clean-cut, and wore the simple dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. His expression was calm, but his hands were locked behind his back to keep them from shaking. This was his first time speaking before the full assembly. But that wasn't why the room was tense. It was because of who was about to arrive. The floor vibrated slightly as a ship docked with the station. The doors at the far end opened. 6 towering guards stepped through, black armor, glowing red visors. Behind them walked Emperor Vorax of the Zarath Dominion. He was massive, nearly twice Jack's height, with scaled purple skin and long blade-like horns that curved upward. His robe was dark and smooth, trimmed in crimson. His eyes scanned the room slowly, as if measuring each delegate's worth. He stepped onto the speaking platform and raised one clawed hand. The room went quiet. "I come not to ask," Vorax said in a deep, cold voice. "I come to claim what is owed." No one interrupted. "The Galactic Union is weak, divided. While you bicker, systems fall to chaos. Pirates roam, trade dies, war returns." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You need one ruler, one empire, one voice." The assembly shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered. Others looked down. No one spoke. "I offer peace through power. Join the Zarath Dominion. Let me take command," Or Vorax said, his eyes flashing. "Watch your worlds burn one by one." The silence that followed was thick. A few looked toward the central podium, where any delegate could speak. None moved, until Jack stepped forward. His boots clicked softly on the platform. As he reached the center, the Emperor turned to him, surprised. The crowd turned too, curious, some confused. Jack pressed a button. His voice rang out across the chamber. "I speak for Earth," he said. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Earth was new to the Union. Many still saw humans as inexperienced. Jack's voice remained steady. "We joined this assembly to help build peace, not to bow to fear." Vorax's eyes narrowed. "And what does a child world know of peace?" Jack didn't flinch, enough to know it cannot be forced. "You don't offer unity. You offer control. That is not peace. That is surrender." The Emperor stepped closer, towering above him. "You stand alone, human." Jack met his gaze. That's how every stand begins. For a moment no one spoke. Then Vorax laughed, low and sharp. "We will see how long you stand." He turned and left the platform. His guards followed, silent and deadly. The assembly remained silent. Delegates whispered. Some looked at Jack with surprise, others with fear, a few with something else, hope. Jack turned, walked off the platform, and disappeared into the crowd. His voice still echoed in the minds of many. The hallways of the Grand Assembly were long, wide, and silent. Light panels along the walls glowed in soft patterns, shifting colors to mimic the mood of the station. Right now they glowed gray-blue, neutral but tense. Jack Voss walked slowly, his hands in his pockets, his mind racing. Behind his calm face was a storm of thoughts. He had just challenged one of the most feared leaders in the galaxy, in front of every major power. No one had backed him, not yet. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth Command. "You made your point. Now let it go." Jack stared at the words for a moment, then closed the message. He kept walking. His first stop was the meeting chamber of the Solari. They were a graceful, bird-like species, known for their wisdom and long memory. Jack waited outside the transparent door until the guard let him in. 3 Solari elders sat inside, feathers tucked close, eyes sharp and intelligent. "I came to speak about the vote," Jack said. The elder in the center tilted her head. "You are bold, human, but boldness is not always wise." "He's wrong," Jack said. "Vorax will destroy the Union if we let him take control." We have to resist together. We remember wars, the elder said. We also remember what happens when we stand alone. Perhaps we will wait and see who else speaks. Jack nodded politely. Thank you for your time. As he left, his expression didn't change, but disappointment tugged at his chest. Waiting would not stop Vorax. He moved on to the chambers of the Varnak Coalition, a reptilian species known for trade and speed. The Varnak leader sat on a low couch, chewing on a strip of dried meat. You got guts, human, the leader said, not looking up. I need your support. The vote. I'm not suicidal, the Varnak snapped. Vorax has fleets. What do you have? Speeches? Jack didn't respond. He simply left. It went on like this. It went on like this. He visited the Yalari, the Mekth, the Dunesworn, the ice-blooded Holan. One by one they listened. Some were polite, some were cold, most were afraid. Every time the answer was the same, no. He returned to his quarters late. The room was simple, grey walls, a bed, a desk, and a screen showing Earth from orbit. The blue planet spun slowly beneath a shield of white clouds. Home. Jack sat at the desk and closed his eyes. The Emperor had already begun winning without firing a single shot. Fear was his weapon. Silence was his ally. Suddenly, a soft tone echoed through the room. A message. He tapped the screen. A figure appeared, tall, thin, wrapped in metallic robes. An alien from the water world of Trenak. Your words were not foolish, she said. They were dangerous. But danger speaks to the truth. Jack leaned forward. Will your people help? Not yet, she said. But we will listen. That is more than you had before. The message ended. Jack stared at the screen. One voice. Maybe not completely alone anymore, but still far from enough. He leaned back in his chair. Tomorrow he would try again, because if no one else would stand up, then he would keep standing. The next morning, Jack Voss walked the wide corridors of the Grand Assembly with slower steps, but his mind was sharper than ever. He hadn't slept much. His body ached from stress, and his eyes burned from staring at too many reports. But he wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. The delegates still moved through the station like drifting clouds, quiet, careful, uncertain. Fear hung in the air, thick and heavy. Some avoided Jack now. Others glanced his way, then looked down quickly. He had spoken against the Emperor. That made him dangerous to stand beside, and interesting to watch from a distance. Jack stopped outside a smaller chamber labeled in 6 languages. Zanari Alliance, appointment required. He knocked anyway. After a pause, the door slid open. A short creature, insect-like, with glassy green eyes and thin antennae, peered up at him. I'm Jack Voss, he said. Human diplomat. We know, the Zanari replied with a strange clicking sound in their voice. Come in. Quickly. Inside, the air was warm and smelled like tree sap. 3 Zanari delegates stood near a long table covered in maps and glowing data charts. Jack bowed slightly, a respectful gesture their species appreciated. I'm here to ask for your support, he said simply. The lead delegate, larger and more armored than the others, responded. You challenge the Emperor. That is either brave or foolish. Maybe both, Jack admitted. But fear shouldn't decide the future. If you believe that too, then you know what we must do. The Zanari didn't answer right away. They looked at each other, clicking softly in their own language. We will not speak in the open, the leader finally said. But we are listening. If you gather more, we may follow. Jack nodded. That's all I ask. He left the chamber quietly, with a little more hope than before. Later that day, he entered the aquatic sector of the station. The walls there curved like waves, and the air was thick with moisture. Inside a deep, round chamber floated the ambassadors of the Valari Deepkin, a water-dwelling species with smooth, glowing skin and long fin-like arms. One of them rose to greet him. You speak like a soldier, yet you wear a diplomat's colors. I used to be a soldier, Jack said. But I've learned that peace takes more courage than war. The Deepkin swirled slowly through the water. We've seen the Zereth Dominion destroy coral cities and boiling seas, yet we are told to stay silent. Silence, Jack replied. Helps only the one holding the blade. They looked at him for a long moment. Then one of them pressed a glowing mark on the wall, a secret sign. 3 voices in the deep will echo yours, she said. Jack gave a slight bow. Thank you. As the hours passed, he found more quiet support. The small nomadic pharaohs offered data on Zereth fleet movements. The Iskari priests, tall and silver-skinned, prayed in his name during a public meditation, a subtle but powerful symbol. Even one of the Dominion's border allies, a trader named Heltar, passed him a whispered warning in a corridor. Watch your back, human. Vorax knows you're gaining ground. Jack didn't show fear, he just nodded and kept walking. That night, Jack sat alone in the assembly observation chamber, staring out at the stars. He thought of Earth, of the oceans, the mountains, the sky. He remembered the soldiers he'd once led. He thought of the ones he'd lost. That was why he had become a diplomat, to make sure fewer soldiers had to fight in the future. A soft beep interrupted his thoughts. Another message. This time from a private channel. It was short. Meet me in the Shadow Garden. Midnight, come alone. No name. No code. Jack stared at it, then deleted the message without responding. He would be there, because every whisper of resistance, no matter how small, was another step away from silence. The Shadow Garden was a quiet corner of the Grand Assembly, far from the council chambers and bright public halls. It was not a real garden, but a hidden dome filled with low, glowing plants and winding stone paths. It had no guards, no cameras. It was built for privacy. Jack Voss arrived just before midnight. He wore a plain cloak over his uniform, hood raised, footsteps soft on the moss-covered path. The dome was silent except for the hum of the station's systems and the faint rustle of alien leaves. He waited beneath a tree that shimmered with blue light. A minute passed, then another. Finally, a figure stepped out from the shadows. He was tall and cloaked in dark robes. His face was hidden behind a smooth silver mask, with no mouth, just 2 narrow eye slits. "You're Jack Voss," the masked figure said. His voice was deep and calm. "Yes," Jack replied. "And you are? No one important, just someone who believes what you said." Jack didn't move. He stayed still, watching the stranger carefully. The masked man continued. "The Emperor plans to win without war. He's striking fear into every system. He's sending messages, making threats. He wants the vote to be over before it begins." "I know," Jack said. "That's why I'm trying to stop him." The stranger tilted his head. "You've gained attention, Jack. More than you know. There are whispers about you on both sides." Jack's voice was firm. "Whispers don't win votes. I need allies. And you may have them," the stranger said. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small crystal cube. He placed it gently on the ground between them. Jack picked it up. "What's this?" "Proof," the masked man said. "Communications between Vorax and certain assembly members. Promises, threats, deals. Enough to shake the room if shared wisely." Jack's grip tightened on the cube. "Why help me?" he asked. The masked figure paused. "Because even an empire can fear a single clear voice. Speak it well." He turned and vanished into the shadows before Jack could ask more. The next day, Jack met with his closest ally on the station, Laura 10, a diplomatic analyst from Earth. She was sharp, young, and trusted no one easily. Jack showed her the cube. Her eyes widened. "This could change everything. Only if the assembly sees it," Jack said. "And only if they believe it." She frowned. "If you show it too early, Vorax could twist the message, make you look desperate." Jack nodded. "We wait. Use it at the vote. Let him expose himself first." "Careful," she said. "He might strike first." Later that afternoon, Jack walked through one of the main halls. He passed a group of delegates from the Zereth Dominion. One of them, an officer, locked eyes with him, then smiled faintly. There was no friendliness in that smile. A few hours later, it happened. Jack returned to his quarters. The door was slightly open. He stepped inside slowly. The lights were off. One of the chairs had been turned over. On the wall, someone had carved a symbol. two claw marks crossed by a single line. It was a sign Jack had seen once before, long ago during his military service. A silent warning from the Zarath assassins. He didn't call security. He simply sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the message on the wall. He took a slow breath, steadying himself. They weren't just watching now, they were preparing, but so was he. That night, as Jack sat at his desk, a message came from Earth again. This time from the Office of Galactic Relations. "You've made your point, Jack. Stand down before Earth is pulled into something it can't survive." He stared at it. Then, without responding, he deleted the message. Earth wouldn't survive if he did nothing. He looked out the window at the stars again. He was tired. His voice was hoarse. He was being followed, threatened, abandoned, but somewhere out there across the Union, others were still listening. Others were still waiting for someone to lead. He would not stop now, because pressure didn't break him, it shaped him. The next morning came without light. The stars beyond the Grand Assembly Station remained distant and cold, and the glow from the station's walls felt dimmer than usual. Jack Voss walked through the halls like a man carrying a weight too heavy to drop. His eyes were tired, but his steps were steady. He had enemies now, real ones. The mark on his wall made that clear. He had the proof cube hidden safely in a personal lockbox, encrypted and firewalled. If anything happened to him, it would be broadcast across the assembly in seconds. But that wasn't enough. He still needed support. He still needed votes, and he was running out of time. The final vote was only 2 days away. Jack stepped into one of the smaller meeting rooms on the lower ring of the station. The room was made of black stone and flickered with red light. Inside sat Vel Dranak, an old ambassador from the Drax Syndicate, one of Vorax's historical allies. Dranak had ruled a dozen colonies before Jack was even born. He was known as a master negotiator and ruthless survivor. If Jack could sway him, others would follow. The Drax ambassador leaned back in his chair, eyes narrow and arms crossed. "You are wasting your time, human." Jack sat across from him, calm, maybe, but that's my time to waste. Dranak chuckled once. "You have nothing, no army, no power, only words and fear," Jack said. Dranak raised an eyebrow. "Fear, yes, the fear you feel when you wonder what happens if Vorax wins. You're loyal to him now, but what if he decides you're no longer useful? He rules by power, which means no one is safe, not even his friends." The old ambassador stayed quiet. Jack leaned forward. "You want to survive. I get it, so do I. But real survival comes from unity, not submission. You help me, and you help build a future where you don't have to bow to anyone." Dranak drummed his fingers on the table. "Your words are dangerous," he said slowly. "They're the truth," Jack replied. Another pause. Then the old Drax ambassador gave a small nod. "I won't speak for you, but I'll stop speaking for him." Jack exhaled quietly. That was enough. That afternoon, the whispers grew louder. Small powers began sending quiet messages of support. A diplomatic courier from the Telsari Republic handed Jack a coded letter. "Our system stands with Earth, quietly for now, but firmly." Even the Solari elders sent a simple message: "We have not forgotten courage when we see it." Jack walked with more purpose now. Each small shift added to the weight behind his voice. He knew the final vote would not be decided by speeches alone, but by momentum, by trust. And trust was finally starting to grow. Later he returned to the assembly garden, a public space of trees, stone benches, and walking paths under artificial light. He sat beneath a silver-leafed tree, the same spot where he had made his first call for peace weeks ago. To his surprise, an Iskari priest approached, tall, silver-skinned, and wearing long robes with glowing blue symbols. The priest bowed. "I am told your voice carries fire," the priest said. "I speak only truth," Jack replied. "Then the fire is real," the priest said. "Our order has meditated. The path of the Dominion leads to silence. Yours leads to life. We will speak with you before the vote." Jack nodded slowly. "Thank you." The priest left without another word. That night, Jack returned to his quarters. As he entered, he noticed a small package on his table. No label, no sender. He opened it carefully. Inside was a small metal coin, old and dull. On one side was the symbol of the Dominion. On the other, scratched through with a deep groove, was the mark of the Zereth assassins, a second warning. He held the coin for a long moment, then placed it on his desk. He didn't need more warnings. He already knew the danger, but the tide was shifting. What once felt like standing alone now felt like leading a quiet march. And when enough people marched together, even in silence, it became something more. A movement, a force, a turning point. Jack sat down at his desk and opened a file labeled Assembly Vote Speech. He stared at the blank screen for a moment. Then he began to type. The chamber of the Grand Assembly had never been this quiet. Thousands of beings filled the stadium-sized hall, each seated behind glowing panels that marked their species, planets, and ranks. The massive dome above them shimmered with soft light, reflecting the pale colors of a nearby star. At the center stood the platform, circular, raised, and open on all sides. It was a place of decision, of history, and soon it would be the place where the future of the galaxy was chosen. Jack Voss stood just outside the circle, alone. He wore his formal Earth diplomat uniform, simple, dark, with a small Earth emblem over his heart. His hair was combed back, his face calm but firm. He had barely slept. He had eaten nothing that morning, but his eyes were sharp, focused, because today, words would either save the Union or it would fall. The Emperor was already there. Vorax stood tall and silent at the far edge of the platform, flanked by two Zereth guards in black armor. He wore a robe of deep violet, the color of dominance in his culture. His sharp horns rose high. His eyes glowed faintly red. He stared straight ahead, unmoving. The voice of the Assembly's AI filled the air, translated into hundreds of languages at once. Delegates of the Galactic Union, the final vote on Proposal Z14, emergency transfer of authority to the Zereth Dominion, begins shortly. All arguments must now be heard. Vorax stepped forward. His voice echoed smooth and controlled. You know what I offer, he said. Stability, order, peace through strength. My fleets keep pirates away. My law keeps worlds safe. I do not ask for your trust. I demand your logic. The Union is fractured. Let me rebuild it. He stopped, letting silence fill the room. Then he turned and returned to his place. No cheers, no applause, just waiting. The AI voice spoke again. Does any delegate wish to speak in opposition? For a few seconds no one moved. Then Jack Voss stepped onto the platform. Every eye turned to him. He pressed the small microphone badge on his chest. His voice rang through the hall. My name is Jack Voss. I speak for Earth, and for any world that believes fear is not leadership. He paused, letting the silence stretch. We all know what the Zereth Dominion brings. Power, control, silence. But peace isn't just the absence of war. Peace is freedom. It's respect. It's a voice that cannot be forced into silence. He held up a small cube, the proof the masked stranger had given him. This contains records of threats, bribes, promises made to sway this vote. I won't read them all. You already know they're real. He placed the cube on the podium. Ask yourselves, if Vorax gets this power, what happens when you disagree with him? What happens when your people say no? He looked around the chamber, letting his gaze meet alien eyes of every shape and color. You're not just voting for control, he said. You're voting to give up your voice. I won't do that. Not for Earth, not for anyone. He stepped back. Silence again, but this time it was a different silence. Tense, heavy, waiting. Then something happened. The delegate from the Zanari Alliance stood. We speak for independence, she said. One light on the voting board turned red. For no, then the Valari Deepkin floated upward. The ocean does not bow. Another red light. Then the Telsari. Then the Solari elders. The Iskari priests. The old Drax ambassador, Vel Dranak. More lights turned red. Then more. Then dozens. Jack stood still as the votes poured in. some slow, some fast, but steadily tipping the board in his favor. Vorax did not speak. He only watched. As the last vote was cast, the final total appeared above the platform. Proposal Z14, rejected. A long silence followed. Then the chamber erupted, not into cheering, but into voices, talking, moving. Energy returned to the assembly. It was as if the entire room had started breathing again. Vorax turned slowly toward Jack. His voice was low. "This is not the end." Jack nodded. "No, but it is the line." Vorax stepped off the platform and disappeared into the dark halls of the station. His guards followed. Jack stood alone for a moment longer. Then Laura 10 appeared beside him, smiling. "You did it," she said. "We did it," Jack corrected. He looked around the chamber, at the movement, the noise, the light. Voices had returned. The Union had spoken. The stars outside the Grand Assembly burned brighter than Jack Voss had ever noticed before. Maybe it was the relief, or maybe it was the silence now filling the halls, not the silence of fear, but of calm, the kind of quiet that follows a storm. The vote was over. Vorax was gone. No one had cheered when it happened. No one needed to. The decision had spoken for itself. Power, once feared and unshakable, had been denied, not by war but by will, by voices raised slowly and steadily, because one man refused to sit down. Jack now walked through the main corridor of the station, nodding politely at the few delegates who passed him. Some stopped him. A few gave him short bows. Others simply offered quiet words of respect. "You gave us back our courage," a Solari whispered as she passed. "Your words reminded us we had a choice," said a Sonari officer. "Earth may be young," a Deepkin delegate told him, "but today you led like a world much older." Jack thanked them all humbly. He didn't smile much. The fight was over, yes, but the cost of speaking up had left its mark. He had made enemies, dangerous ones, and there was no promise of safety in the future. But something else had returned. Trust, solid and growing. He entered the observation chamber where it had all started, just glass, stars, and silence. The vast galaxy stretched endlessly before him. He stood there, hands behind his back, looking out into the light of a million suns. Laura 10 joined him a few minutes later. "You haven't said much," she noted. Jack nodded. "There's nothing left to say. They heard me." She stood beside him. "What now?" He shrugged slightly. "I file reports, shake hands, answer questions. Then I go home. Earth's proud of you, Jack." He smiled faintly, not with pride, but with peace. "They should be proud of themselves," he said. "I just spoke the words." She hesitated, then held out a data tab. "This came through for you. Private channel, no sender, marked personal." Jack took it, opened it. It was a short message. Just text. "Your voice saved us all. Never stop speaking." Unknown. He stared at the words for a long time. He didn't know who sent them. Maybe one of the minor delegates. Maybe even someone from the Zareth Dominion who'd been quietly hoping for a different future. He closed the message and looked once more at the stars. The fight was over. The danger had not vanished, and new battles would come. But for today, peace had won, because one voice had refused to be silenced, and the galaxy had remembered what courage sounded like.